Today we're looking at some of the previewed rules for the Necron Convergence of Dominion, and we've also got a little bit more detail about that Hammerfall drop turret for the Space Marines. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, the strategy-focused 40k channel, where we've been taking a look at the news and developments for Space Marine and Necron rules as they've been coming out. So it's about a week ago now that we got the first previews of the Hammerfall drop turret and the Necron Convergence of Dominion, a few bits and bobs about them, but now we have a bit more of an idea as to how they're actually going to work. We'll take a look at the previewed rules for the Necron Fortification first, and then the new previewed rule for the Hammerfall turret. So let's start with the Necron Convergence of Dominion then. It's now confirmed that you do buy them as one unit. The Convergence of Dominion is the name for the unit, and the individual fortifications I believe are called Starsteles, although I'll be honest, I'm not sure how to pronounce the end ELE bit. In any case, it seems to come from the word STELE, which is a word for basically an ancient upright stone slab or column, often bearing inscriptions, and often serving as a gravestone. Very appropriate for the Necrons, I guess. In any case, when they're deployed on the board, you don't have to set them up in unit coherency, but you do have to set them up wholly within 12 inches of another one, so it's not the biggest distance in the world to try and get them apart, as per the wholly within definition. It seems like one of their primary bonuses is a bonus to Necron morale. Basically, if your units are within 6 inches of these Starsteles, then you add +2 to their leadership, typically giving them a very impressive leadership 12. It's not quite as big a deal if you do fail morale checks with Necron warriors these days, but this will certainly make it less likely, even if you are taking some fairly hefty casualties. They're each armed with transdimensional abductors, they've got 12-inch range, their assault D3, and their strength 4, AP -3, and damage 3. A curious sort of weapon really, low strength but high AP and damage. In general, I suspect they're meant to opportunistically snipe off enemy characters that stray too close. I wouldn't be surprised if in the background they're having some sort of fluff as ominous fortifications where if you stray too close to them, you have a habit of going missing. Overall though, I think they are going to be opportunistic weapons, they're not going to be the things that you can rely on, seeing as they've got very low range, and besides this translocations protocol special rule, it looks like they'll probably be immobile. Basically, this special rule is the one for teleporting them across the board, but to do so you'll have to have one of your Cryptek units basically sitting around for a turn, doing the action to teleport the Starsteel. This is one of those new actions from the core book. Basically he can start it at the end of his movement phase, so he could move up to within 3 inches of one of the fortifications, and declaring that he's starting performing this action. It means he won't be able to do any shooting or any other voluntary actions that turn, but by the end of your turn it means that you can teleport one of these Starsteels to anywhere on the board that's greater than 9 inches away from enemy models. It's interesting that it basically goes missing for a turn, it disappears at the end of your turn, but doesn't come back till the end of your next movement phase, meaning that you could potentially get it in range to use that transdimensional abductor thing. I think it's actually probably quite useful that it does remain off the board for that time, because if it just directly teleports across, then it'd be right in your opponent's face. It wouldn't be able to shoot that turn as it's the end of your turn, but your opponent might be able to destroy it in the following one. I suspect it will probably be immune from people doing any sort of shenanigans with it being immobile and trying to lock it up, as most fortifications do have rules that allow you to shoot at enemy units that are in close combat with them. But all the same, it does mean they're not really going to be very tactically flexible, even if they probably will be quite tough point for point, I would imagine. I do kind of wonder how viable a tactic it's actually going to be to have a Cryptek sitting around for an entire turn to teleport one of these. It's certainly cool imagery, but it does mean that you won't be getting any value out of him that turn. Besides, after his action's done, and he might be able to buff reanimation protocols the following turn. I think in reality they are going to have to be quite cheap, because other than being tough, it looks like their shooting attacks aren't going to be all that potent, and +2 leadership isn't the biggest deal with morale on the state it's in at the moment. Moving on to the Hammerfall drop turret, there's just one additional rule that they've previewed today. We of course had already seen the Hammerfall missile launcher in a previous preview, the 72-inch range Super Frag and Super Crack missiles, which do look quite powerful on paper, but of course we don't know the points cost or what ballistic skill it's going to be firing at yet. The rule that's been previewed today though is its defensive array, which appears to be a rule to allow all of those heavy flamers and heavy bolters to fire at any units in range. Basically each time in your shooting phase, each time this model is selected to shoot, its Hammerfall heavy bolter array or Hammerfall heavy flamer array can target and resolve attacks against every eligible enemy unit within range. I'm just going to guess it's probably going to be one round of shooting from either the heavy bolters or heavy flamers, so probably 2d6 heavy flamer shots and probably 6 heavy bolter shots. My big question from this, however, is just how long is the range on those heavy bolter defensive arrays going to be? Because if it was 36 inches, then it would presumably be able to hit the vast majority of the enemy army, which seems like that's very unlikely for something that Games Workshop is going to do. I would personally guess that these Hammerfall heavy bolter arrays are going to have a very short range indeed, maybe something like 12 or 18 inches at the most. If it's more than that, then they could be very powerful indeed. Even if that is the case though, it could still potentially be pretty decent to drop this thing on the front lines, and then maybe be able to target a few enemy units all in one go. From there it could just be a bit of an irritation threat to stop enemy units just going for objectives without taking some casualties, or forcing them to destroy the bunker, which I presume is going to be pretty tough. I'm really quite intrigued to see the rules of this thing. It could be an interesting extra toy to add to a Space Marine army if the points costs aren't too high. If there's anything I missed, please let me know down in the comments below. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, then feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics. We'll certainly be continuing our coverage of the new rules and updates as they come out. If you've been enjoying my videos, then feel free to give the channel's Patreon page a look, which is down in the video description below. Making all of these videos does take a fair amount of time, and any support is greatly appreciated if you are watching regularly. A big thank you to my current patrons for allowing this channel to keep on going. In any case, a big thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.